Well, welcome everybody to Black History Conversations. I'm in Cheadle in Cheshire today. You know, I get around a bit and I'm with a very good friend here. Oops, today as you move it over. So Gwyneth is here with me today and we're going to be telling you a little bit about a very interesting little book that Gwyneth has. So we're going to be looking at this autograph book in a minute. But just to say, to start us off, can you put me in as host as well, Simon, and then I can share the PowerPoint presentation, which it consists of one thing this time, right? Okay, then. All right, and that will mean that if you do have to go, Simon, then I can switch off, can't I? Which is good. Right, so start sharing. Where are we? Here we are. Right, well, this is the, oops. This is the final session of season 8. I did perhaps enough's enough this time. Final session of season 9. I do apologise. So when we finished season 8, we'd actually achieved 100 sessions of Black History Conversations, and Simon has recorded them all and got them on the Belong Nottingham website, and we're very grateful for you for doing that and for Belong Nottingham to host them. So what we said we'd do today, we start at 9:30 for, sorry, can't speak today. Start at 2:30 for 3 o'clock normally, but maybe if Jamaican colleagues want to join us, we've added that in. And that is because during season 9, we were very much focused on the story of the Windrush, leaving the ship itself and the people who were on board, leaving in May and arriving in Tilbury in June. So we followed that story through with all sorts of people speaking and making presentations, hearing about what they'd done in Jamaica and other things. So that's why we've had this time with the folks from Jamaica, but this is about more reflections. Last week we were catching up and looking at the consultation of the Mayor of London about the proposed statue for the in memory of those who were transported across the Atlantic, and so that was quite an interesting consultation. But we're discussing all sorts of different things in each different session. So as you see, David Alston has joined us, and he's going to update us in a bit. So that's, you can see at the bottom there, David's book, Slaves and Highlanders, was the Scottish Book of the Year in 2022. It's a really fantastic book, and we'll hear a little bit more about that. So I'm Liz Millman from Learning Links International, and also from the, just bringing in 2 more people, and also from the North Wales Jamaica Society. So my first stories I'm going to talk about with Gwyneth, and I won't keep you here all the time, but if you want to, we'll just start off with that. Then David, maybe it would be really good just to hear about a bit of an update from you. Simon, I don't know if you want to do an update today about what you're doing or not.
I won't have time, I don't think, Liz.
No, okay, then we'll maybe arrange, because we've got to plan how we're going to start off season 10 in September, and by then you'll also have done the visit with your students next week down to London, so that'll be good to hear about, and maybe your students will join us to tell us how they've got on with the research into the Africans whose names I apologise I can't remember, who brought Livingstone's body back to the UK. What were their names, Simon?
We're working on Jacob Wainwright, one of them in particular, the one who met Queen Victoria, and I'm increasingly suspecting that his lost diary is sitting in the Royal Archive somewhere.
Oh, that's interesting to know.
Well, she mentions it in her diary, and I think it's the last official mention. So she says something like, received a copy of Jacob Wainwright's diary, very interesting, full stop.
Right. Is it possible to access the Royal Archives?
It's one of the things I want to ask people for advice on at some point is how we would find it. I mean, Tara might have some ideas, for example, on how we go about that.
It's interesting. Yes, just on the archives story, I went to Conwy Archives today, so this is news for Gwyneth, who has just arrived at her house, plugged my computer in and sat down in the dining room. Anyway,
Lovely to see you.
it's great to be here. So I'm Liz Millman, as I said. Round the screen, we've also got Simon Faringo, who's just speaking from Belong Nottingham and other organisations. And Simon's specialist interest is the commodity of cotton. Is that right, Simon?
Yeah, cotton and sustainability specifically is my main sort of area of work.
Yeah,
increasingly interested, as well as how we link commodities, reparations, and loss and damage for climate change, given the disproportionate impacts on minority or sort of vulnerable communities from both colonialism and climate change.
yes, very, very, very important areas. I was just with Lisa Garrett earlier this week, and she's doing her research into the impact of wool in the world trade networks, which is really interesting. So we'll hopefully be able to follow up on that in season 10. Anyway, we've also got June Elizabeth Whitesmith Gully. Would you like to introduce yourself, June Elizabeth, and introduce your two guests who you introduced? Are you well?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am based in Northampton, and I belong to multiple organisations, many with Windrush links. And the main one is, as Liz has already mentioned, of the International Windrush International Allies Network, the Windrush National Organisation, Northampton Windrush Generation and Descendants UK and Friends, and the Mary Seacombe Memorial Association, Nurse Association of Jamaica, London branch. So that's just a few people, that organisations that I belong to. But I just want to introduce a gentleman who rang me today, following up the, I believe somebody came to one of the Windrush events in Northampton and stated that maybe I'd like to link up with Greg from Kimani in Leicester. So I got this phone call today and I was driving, so I rang him back, and I invited him onto the platform, but I had to check with Simon and everybody else to make sure that I'm giving him the right, ID, because sometimes I have problems getting on. So I was very pleased to see when I came on, not only was he on, but a colleague of his named Maxine. There you go. Storyteller.
Thank you very much indeed, and it was amazing. We've got Garrick Prayout with us now. Garrick,
yes, he gave me the number as well to get on to make sure.
Well, June Elizabeth was on the Zoom. Was this yesterday?
Parliamentary Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday. Sorry, where does the days go? And Zoom, and Garrick, that was a really amazing effort that you make every couple of months. Garrick, do you want to explain what Justice for Windrush Generations are doing?
Yes, thank you very much, Liz, and good afternoon to everyone. Have we got anybody from outside the UK that may be a different time zone?
Tayo, I haven't said hello to you yet. Tayo, where are you joining us from?
Hello.
Hello, Tayo.
I would love to say I'm outside of the UK, but I'm stuck over the water from where Garrick is. The other bank of the Mersey in Liverpool.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. I thought there was any colleagues from Jamaica on the time zone, so that's why I asked a question. So yes, Liz, just to say a little bit about the work around Justice for Windrush Generation. Every 2 months, we organize a rally in Parliament. We bring the issues to Parliament because the issues started in Parliament with the government. And so we've been doing this for over 12 months on a regular lobbying. Prior to our session, we were supporting Global African Congress with their annual lobbying of Parliament. They've been doing it for much longer, 10, 15 years or so. And the idea of the lobby is to bring the Windrush community into the same space with MPs. And we invite guest speakers on particular issue around legal matters, community development, etc. And even more so around research. We work closely with the Windrush Justice Clinic. There are a number of those around the country, mainly engaging with law students who are actually doing the work. And Queen Mary University does have a number of researchers attached to attached to Windrush Justice Clinic. So on Wednesday, we invited a researcher just to bring us up to speed with current research. And one of the points he made, very much a point that we appreciate, that we don't need any more research to tell us that the Home Office compensation scheme is not fit for purpose. We know this because the Home Office themselves, through their select committee, had commissioned a piece of work just to look at the scheme. And the report came back that it's not fit for purpose. It should be removed from the Home Office. However, that's over a year ago. I don't think there's any chance in this current climate for the current government to do anything about Windrush. We know that their days are numbered. And in relation to the research, what the researcher confirmed, that we now need to look in a different direction as far as the way forward. And so we're having these conversations, cross-party, engaging with MPs, bringing the issues and getting allies along with different organizations so that we can at least try to put an alternative proposal forward. There is also another organization that we support working on the Windrush Act to bring about an act of parliament to change the current situation that has arisen since the scandal broke in 2018. So every 2 months we do this. That's part of our campaigning work. But in addition to that, we do other things to get the information out to people. So June Elizabeth is a member of our Sunday chat. So twice a month, we have an informal Sunday chat where people can join a platform and they can get specific information and guidance around who is eligible for the scheme, how they should approach filling out the form, which is another issue for many people. And also for them to just check, whether or not they're on the right course in relation to their status and in relation to how Windrush has impacted on themselves or their family. So we do that twice a month, the second and last Sunday of each month. Everything we do is advertised and promoted on the Eventbrite platform. So you can just Google any word, rally, Sunday chat, Windrush, it's on the Eventbrite platform. In addition to our own website, which is Justice for Windrush Generation with a s.co.uk. So everything is in one place as far as information. So we like to get that information as far as possible. not just for the UK. We reach out to the diaspora in Africa, reach out to Canada, reach out to other Caribbean islands, just to make sure that this information is out there, because the Home Office is not promoting the scheme outside the UK. And we've challenged them over this. And, we're still challenging the Home Office. They're not doing enough to promote the scheme. And the researcher did say on Wednesday, and evidence show they're waiting for a lot of the first generation to die off. And the reality is that is so. A lot of the Windrush people are dying off without resolving these issues. They're having to go on to their second and third generation. And the public, I must say, the public don't really know that Windrush is still a massive issue, a great injustice, and it's never talked about in the public.
It's very true, Garrick, and I just admire you for all the work that you're doing. It really is so essential. And this scandal, the Home Office scandal relating to either people who came over at the time with Windrush or their descendants, is just awful. But as you say, days are numbered for this current government, but can we hope for better? I hope so. Garrick, thank you for introducing yourself and telling us about Justice for Windrush Generations. Now I'm going to ask Tayo. Would you like to introduce yourself, Tayo, so we know you've joined us from over the Mersey, is it?
Yes, the banks of the Mersey. Liverpool. I have lived here since 1989 when I came to study architecture, but I am now a full-time actor, singer, playwright, and I have 2 one-man plays that I have been touring around the UK and abroad since 2007 and then 2016. And I have just finished a draft of a 3rd one, which I'm not sure when it'll come to stage, but it's in early days so far. The first one is about Paul Robeson, African-American actor and activist and singer. And the second one uses the life of Britain's first black judge to look at black liberation struggles around the world through the eyes of somebody who's not really into politics, would rather watch cricket and sing, and considers himself just an ordinary lawyer, which is the title. And the third one that I'm working on, I'm sort of waiting for feedback from various places, is titled Coleridge Taylor of Freetown, which is inspired by the life and music of Samuel Coleridge Taylor, but is told through the life of his nephew, who was George Coleridge Taylor, who was a diplomat based in Sierra Leone. It's set in the Sierra Leone Civil War and deals with the less positive aspects of history when handled under the power and influence of African politicians. And the Civil War was one of those cases where the world saw humanity at its worst, especially in terms of violence against women. And that is one of the themes of the play, which is what makes it quite difficult. But it's something that I have felt needed to be written about. And so I'm hoping that it'll see the light of day before too long. And that's me.
Thank you very much indeed, Teo. That's really great and just brilliant to think about the plays. We had Victor Richards, who his one-man play is Streets of Gold, and he was talking about that, and he's actually going to be filming that. So I don't know if that's anything you've thought of, to leave the legacy of your productions. We'll.
Yes, I have both my existing plays on film, and they are available through a company that I've met through performing at the Edinburgh Festival, and they have it on their platform for people to watch. They are filmed live performances. That is correct, I think. Yes, is that right? I don't remember. And they also have another play that I wrote, which is an audio play called Paul Robeson's Love Song, which deals with a particular aspect of Paul Robeson's life. So this one, I think, will be filmed in the fullness of time as well. The trick is getting it onto stage, especially with its very controversial subject matter.
Good luck with that. I hope, I'm sure it'll go well. I'm sure it'll go well.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you very much indeed. Do you want to put the link to the film company into the chat? Would that be helpful?
I will do, yes, yep.
People would be interested. And Tayo, it would be great to invite you back in season 10 to tell us how you're getting on and a bit more information about your projects. Thank you very much. And we're also joined by Gregory Smith and Maxine Chambers, and they're from Kinan. You'll have to pronounce it for me. I'm not getting my head around it right.
It's Kaine.
Kaine.
Yeah, I know it looks very different, but it's Kaine.
Right, Kaine management group, and you've been working with folks from the Windrush generation, and it'll be perhaps good to hear about that next. But if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask you if you can hang on to hear this story. Then we'll do David's story, and then we're going to wrap up with the story from you and what you're doing. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. It may have to be Gregory because I have to go to another meeting in a bit, but I'm sure, Greg, you're all right to do that, aren't you, Greg?
Well, maybe
sorry, I got pulled away with
okay.
a slight emergency there. I'm so sorry.
Maxine, tell us what you're now. Is that all right, David? You're okay? Yeah, good. Right, okay, Gregory and Maxine, tell us what you've been doing lately then with Windrush and everything else, because we don't want to miss out on hearing from you, Maxine.
Okay. I mean, obviously each year we've been working to secure funding for our Windrush generation in Leicester, and the more we liaise with them, the more we want to do to support them. So we are collating their stories and experiences. We're hoping to produce a book of those. Last week they went to visit Liverpool, actually, Teo. They went to the Maritime Museum to see the slavery exhibition, which none of them ever seen, but said they really wanted to go and see. And I think, Greg, the feedback has been very, very positive. They thoroughly enjoyed the exhibition, the way it was, the different elements that they could get engage and get involved in. Already they've been saying, can we go to Bristol next? So that's something we're kind of definitely looking into. But in Leicester, what we've become part of, it's called Leicester Windrush Consortium, as Greg was explaining. A couple of organisations were coming together. One of the things our Windrush has said is, since they've seen the Waterloo Monument, they definitely want a Leicester monument. So we've been surveying, getting information on what they would like, and then we're working. Our local authority, I was just at a meeting this morning, so they've just got a new cultural director who is very interested in talking to people and finding out things. He's only been in post for a couple of months, so he's trying to just work on it. And I'm already queued up to go and meet with him to say, well, the Windrush generation that contribute to Leicester, they want to see a monument. How are we going to make that happen? So we'll be definitely sort of working on that. One of the biggest, I think, excitements that we have is where we work with schools. So our Windrushers will be going into schools. They did some we called them a human library. So they went into the libraries, and local schools brought children into the libraries, and they were able to share their experiences, do questions, and be asked questions and answer those questions. And part of this year's project in Leicester, we have the 75th anniversary bunting project. So schools projects are developing their own triangles with commemoration or gratitude to the Windrush generation that will then be touring libraries in Leicester. So different people are creating their triangles. We will be putting it together, and then it will sort of tour the city. And it's just a great way for us to show our appreciation for the resilience, really, and overcoming barriers. And because of their journey, we can do what we're doing today. And I think for us, it's an important part of our work that we just want to really continue.
Sounds fantastic. What a brilliant idea. Because bunting's so much fun, and if it can be so positive, if you take that approach, that's brilliant. Right, Gregory, is there anything you want to add? Can't hear you.
So just echoing what Maxine's saying, you know, I think we've come to the realization that we don't want to isolate the Windrush story. We think it's really important to, you know, curate the histories of this group, but also because of, you know, we're discovering lots of stories, and I suppose every region will have its own stories. I mean, we had we had a Miss Leicester 1963 was actually a Caribbean lady. So we're discovering all these interesting stories about you know, our community that we want to really try to hold on to and archive. It's very important to us, but also share with the next generation, you know, the contributions of this group and what they've done and how they contributed to British society. So, you know, it's really incumbent on us not to just be sharing the histories with people who look like us, but to be sharing the history and the stories with others. So a big part of that human library project that Maxine started has been really about that, really trying to get that story out and beyond. And you know, it's interesting how the work has developed. The regional work that we're trying to develop has also been seen as important. You know, we're all in similar situations in terms of, you know, struggle sometimes to find the finance to make the work happen. There's the will, but sometimes not the financial backing at times. Or and so we found ourselves, you know, trying to regionally link up and make those collaborations and partnerships, because we feel that's going to be helpful to sort of further the work and try and support each other in this sort of similar causes. So yeah, I just wanted to add that that addendum to what Maxine was saying.
Yeah, Garrick wanted to come in. Garrick?
Yes, just a point to bear in mind, Gregory and Maxine. In this platform, we often speak about, you know, not separating Windrush out of British history. And when we talk about Windrush, we need to make sure we emphasize it is part of British history. And the Black conversation that we have, we always push to ensure that is a bigger conversation within British history, not separating it out any different. So when you go into schools, any educational establishment, we need to quickly establish that with your audience.
I agree. And I think that's a big reason why we're not just trying to speak to members of the community. We're not trying to keep our work within a certain group, a certain cohort. It's incumbent on us to really be sharing above and beyond, because as you said, it is a part of British history. It's a story of individuals who were British citizens, you know, they're part of the Commonwealth, as it were. So yeah, they were British citizens. They came over here on British passports. So yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think yeah, there is, yeah, it's, some people do talk about it. You can, the tenor of what they're saying would almost assume they're trying to sort of separate and place it over here. But yeah, we want to make it in part and parcel of British culture in that sense, and ensure British history, sorry, and ensure that we're doing so. Yeah, so we're trying to do that.
Thanks very much indeed. So it, yeah, definitely needs to be seen in context, doesn't it? I'm just going to say something, June Elizabeth, before you come in. I don't know if any of you were watching that series, £10 Poms. And for those of you who don't know, I spend a lot of my time in Australia, so I was really interested to see the story of £10 Poms. So the story is often told that we needed to have, Maxine's leaving us now, thank you, that's fine. Often we hear the story of how people from around the empire, Caribbean, India, other places were encouraged to come to get work in Britain. But one of the statistics that's really shocked me is that more than 1 million white people from Britain were given assisted passage, the £10 Poms, to go and live in Australia. 1 million. So no wonder we had needed workers if we were populating Australia, as clearly was the policy from 1945 on, with white people. And Australia, I don't know if you all know, but Australia had a white Australians policy, and that was, everybody was screened. Yeah, another thing, another element there. June Elizabeth, you wanted to add something, and then we're going to talk about the exciting book that we've got here. June Elizabeth.
Yes, just to follow up with Maxine and Garrick. In Northampton many moons ago, we had human libraries, and we went round the schools under Northamptonshire Black History Association, which was a pilot for many associations. And in doing so, we also collected over 200 oral history. And from that, we made a book called Sharing the Past. And what they did for Windrush 75, Northampton Museum had £150,000. So we all worked together, and that's how come they've got this digital Windrush exhibition, which hopefully Liz will see tomorrow, because it's across the road from where we're going for the matinee. Yes, so a lot of people are writing books of the elders, getting their stories. Well, we've got a book called Cold Arrival. I'll show you that tomorrow, Liz. Remember to ask me. And maybe about 30 years ago, the Windrush elders, who were like my age, 66, they were pensioners, 70, they all told their story, not too long, maybe a page or two and a picture. And they said, what should we title the book? And they came to a unanimous decision of their reception, and they called it Cold Arrival. So the book is called Cold Arrival. So a lot of people are now doing things what we did a long time ago, and we've got the templates for many things that are happening now. So it is good that we keep doing it, you know. I've been doing it from 1980, and you know, I work as an international Windrush advocate and support a lot of charities, but Black history is my forte. So I just wanted to add that in. It's something, it's not just Black, we all know it's not just Black History Month, it's every day. And anytime I get this opportunity, I give a presentation once or twice a day. It doesn't matter where I am. Yes.
Good on you, June Elizabeth, you're keeping it going. Okay then, right, well what I'm going to share with you now is I'll introduce Gwyneth, who's here with me. Gwyneth, some years ago now, you heard that we were doing something about Reverend William Hughes, didn't you? And that was really good, because Gwyneth said, to me on the phone. She said, because I've got an autograph book that I think belonged to Reverend William Hughes's daughter. Now we need to explain who Reverend William Hughes is now. Reverend William Hughes was a Welsh missionary who went to the Congo, and then he had to come back because he was quite ill, wasn't he?
Yes.
Then he went back again, and then he came back again to Wales. And at that point, he decided that it could be more efficient, more effective to invite African students to come to Wales to study and to learn a range of things. So that's what he set about. First of all, it was called the Congo Institute, and then it became called the African Institute in Colwyn Bay in North Wales. That's next to Llandudno. So over the years, we've met with other people.
Yes.
We've met with his granddaughter and his great-granddaughter. We've talked on the Black History Conversations about this as well, and we have managed to produce a film about it. But what I want to talk about now is about the autograph book and how special this is. So if you want to ask any questions anytime, if I'm not making sense, just put your hand up or whatever. Right, okay. So what fascinated me when I first got my hands on this autograph book, and I haven't seen it for a long time now, it must be 6 years since I've seen it. And I've learned a lot over those 6 years. So Katie, Reverend William Hughes's daughter, was not well. She died in her 20s. And so these African students who came over to study at the African Institute would have had time talking with her, and she must have decided to create an autograph book that they could write in and share some memories. The handwriting in this book is absolutely incredible. I don't know if you can see how, right, get a bit nearer, up the right way. It really is wonderful copper plate. So I think that's of interest. Now, this autograph books created a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Professor Robert Burrows, who came to speak with us at one stage.
But what date? You haven't said what date is on them.
So this one is dated 1904. This is 1906.
It was that period, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it's at that time there. And there's certainly a range 1905. And how Gwyneth comes to have the autograph book is that your great
My grandfather went to the same chapel and was
was part of the
yes
church and everything. This is a bit of a surprise to Gwyneth that I've arrived in her house and I'm talking on this subject. But anyway, I'm so thrilled with it all. It's too exciting. So I'm going to I showed you the incredible copper plate writing. This is right in the very front of the book, and I don't think when I first came, I remember photographing the book,
That's
but I don't
right,
think I
yes.
photographed all the pages.
I think Richard's doing it.
So really, there's a need to study the work here. So I may not read it all the way through because it's quite long. Let's see how I get reading the handwriting. This is Asaph Leslie Kanyanga Napo. Right, so
Does it say where he was from?
it doesn't say
No,
where he's
no,
from, but
no.
whether his name is Asaph Leslie and he's come Kanyano Sapo, I'm not sure, but we'll this is initial stage of research here. And here on the second page, just turned over, is the same person who's done this illustration of Katie with the clover leaves around. And he just says in this, he says, Asaph Leslie Kayano, African student. Okay, so this is what he wrote. Forced from home and all its pleasures, Africa's coast I left forlorn, to increase a stranger's treasures, over the raging billows borne. Men from England bought and sold me, paid my price in paltry gold, but though theirs they have enrolled me, minds can never be sold. And verse 2, still in thoughts as free as ever, what are England's rights, I ask? Me from my delights forever to sever, me to torture, me to task. Fleecy locks and black complexion cannot forfeit nature's claim. Skins may differ, but affection dwells in white and black the same. Verse 3. By our blood in Afric wasted, ere our necks receive the chains, by the miseries we have tasted, crossing in your barks the main ships, by our suffering since he brought us to the man degrading mart, all sustained by patience, taught us only by a broken heart. And verse 4, why did all creating nature make the plant for which we toil? Sighs must fan it, tears must water. Think, ye masters ivory-hearted, prove you have human feelings. What vexations Afric's sons should undergo. I remain yours, a friend, Asaph Leslie Kamana. So that's possibly the first time, certainly, this has been read and shared, because Gwyneth has kept this autograph book extraordinarily safely. We've had various conferences and talks and meetings and things, but recently Professor Robert Burrows, I think, came here, did he?
Well, he sent a message, didn't actually come.
Oh, right. And did your son
Yes,
photograph
photograph it for him. Yes.
Right. Did he photograph it all?
I think he's in the throes of doing it at the moment.
Right, okay.
But he just wanted one particular one he wanted.
Right.
Ernestina.
Right.
And because
yes.
she's written in that.
Yes.
She wanted
So
a
it was
picture.
not just men and boys that came to Colwyn Bay. It was also there were some women as well. I can't find, and I've flicked through. There's an entry by Davidson Jabberville. I'll tell you about that in a minute. Garrick.
I'm just thinking, Liz. What you've just read is a personal account, isn't it, from that student? But I suspect in the book there are many personal accounts of individual, telling their live experience, whatever that is. It would be interesting, if maybe a research student could go through the book, each of those stories, and capture that in some sort of thesis or whatever. Just capture the entire book of those personal stories.
I think that's a really good idea, and you're kind of ahead of where people are thinking. Not all of them are long pieces. This is just a very short piece. This is by wish and token, by thoughts unspoken, the links of friendship are unbroken. And some of them are from friends. That's from a lady called Gladys Evans Hughes. She lived in Colwyn Bay. And some of them are obviously from the students, and they pour their hearts out. So, right, so let's update everybody what's happening now with the wonderful autograph book. Well, Gwyneth and her son have been discussing possibilities, because this is a real treasure. This is a real resource. And currently, and this morning I went to the new archives in Conway. I don't know if you've seen it. just as you come out of the town, the archives are there. So I had a meeting with a lady there this morning because I've been looking to maybe talk with Gwyneth about where this autograph book could be housed, and what use could it be? Could it contribute towards a better understanding about the stories of the African Institute, very much from the students' point of view? To begin with, we very much told the Reverend Willie Hughes' story because that was the story we knew about, and we knew knew of his descendants. But now the archives at Conwy have got funds to be able to develop an exhibition about the story of the students. So we're going to be involving.
The first two that came over couldn't survive the weather, could they?
No. Yes, it's quite tragic. Gwyneth's reminding me that two of the younger students, whose names I can't recall, they passed away sadly, but they have beautiful and respectful gravestones in the cemetery in Elcoin. So we've looked at that. Right, Gregory needs to get on his way now, so thank you very much indeed. So he's got all his details there for me. Thank you very much indeed, Gregory. Right, okay then. So yeah, I just wanted to share this with you so that Gwyneth can see that this is what we're going to be talking about. When I've finished doing this, I'll take some photographs of it, and then we'll maybe be able to show them. And Garrett, you'll be interested to hear how it pans out, because it may be of interest for you to perhaps even be involved in the work with the archives, because they want to engage with people from the global majority communities. Okay, so Marcia's keen to be involved as well, and we're going to engage with the North Wales Africa Society, because there's plenty of
I'm interested as well, from the University of Northampton.
Okay then, so lots of interest in this, and I think if we can pull together the academic interest with Robert Burrows as well, then that'll be fine. Okay then. So June Elizabeth, are you saying bye-bye to Gregory? Right, now, before we go any further then, I just wanted to introduce that and say to Gwyneth, you know, you find just, if you're all right sitting here,
Yes,
because it's interesting. All right, David Alston, are you there? Or have you just gone off to make the cup of tea? Here he is,
No,
David.
I'm here.
Lovely. So come on, David, tell us what's happened in your world since you published this amazing book about Highlands and slavery. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, I because I haven't met everybody here before, so maybe if I just say a little bit about who I am and where I am and why I got involved in this. I live in the far north of Scotland, and it's a part of Scotland that lots of people would perhaps think didn't have many connections with the slave trade and the slave plantations. In fact, exactly the opposite is true. And about 25 years ago, I began to notice a lot of connections between my part of Scotland and Guyana. And that it's connections with Guyana that has been the focus of my research. Although the book is more widely about the involvement of Scots, and particularly Highland Scots, in the Caribbean and Guyana and Suriname. What I've tried to do in the book, I'm delighted with the reception that it's had. What I've tried to do is first of all, I think, emphasize the way in which the economies that were based on slavery permeated society. This isn't just a question of, a few rich people investing in the slave trade and slave plantations. Because money was being made, there were opportunities there that were taken by fairly ordinary people who go out to work as managers, as overseers, as tradespeople. So it's something that affects almost all levels of society, particularly once you start looking at the goods that are being exported to service the slave plantations from this part of the world. Linen fabric that's going out as clothing, salt herring that's been shipped out as food. So in many ways, the economy of the Highlands of Scotland, a relatively remote part, is shaped by involvement in the Caribbean. So that's one aspect of the book. The other thing that I've tried to do is I think, as far as possible, to try to recover at least something of the voices of those who were enslaved. And through some accidents of history, the opportunity of doing that in relation to Guyana is particularly rich because of the records that have survived. So that's the other side of the book, is trying to cover something of these individual voices, and to do all of that in an accessible way. And I think what I've been most pleased about in reviews of and responses to the book, as well as the prize, is that people find it accessible. So I hope that I'm getting through to an audience that might not otherwise read in much depth about this subject. And that, I think, is all part of trying to make, just going back to some comments that were made earlier, make this part of mainstream history. It is the history of Scotland, it is the history of the Highlands, it is the history of Britain. And unless you understand it, this history, you don't understand the rest of the history. I think it's a slow process, because Scotland has been very good at turning a blind eye to its involvement in the slave trade and the slave plantations. I think things are changing, but I think it's only time will tell whether that's a real change or just something that's cosmetic. There's still a lot of people who don't want to believe that ordinary Scots, ordinary Highlanders had an involvement. So that's the book. Maybe if I just say a couple of things, other things I'm involved in, and this is where the Jamaican connection comes in. One of the things I've been with a colleague have been campaigning on is something called the James Dick bequest. James Dick was a merchant from the north of Scotland, a merchant in Kingston, and he was in partnership with Robert Milliken. Now, I think if you remember, when Colston's statue was toppled in Bristol, the other statue which came down was the statue of Robert Milliken, which used to stand outside the Museum of London. And the Museum of London, to their credit, realised that it was entirely inappropriate that statue was there, and they removed it. Well, James Dick was Milliken's partner, and they made their money not directly in the shipment of enslaved Africans to the Caribbean, but as middlemen. They were then involved as slave factors in selling on people to the plantations. When James Dick came back to London, went on making money, when he died in the 1820s, he left most of his money to establish a charitable trust called which is still in existence. And this trust was it was an educational charity that benefited the northeast of Scotland. To give you an idea of its scale, when it was set up, the interest was enough to match the salaries of about 130 parish schoolmasters. They were all men at that time in the northeast of Scotland. So it was a very significant input to the quality, to the resources for education in that part of Scotland. And the charity still exists, and it's still distributing funds. So we've been campaigning to say this money is very clearly derived from slave trade, and the money should be returned to Jamaica. It's benefited part of Scotland for about 170 years. It's time that as a minimum, it's time that it went back, and that's not touching the issue of reparations, for what's happened in the past. We've had some success and some failure. I think by drawing attention to it, we've got to the position where people, as far as we know, there are now very few applications to the trust because people have recognised where the money came from. The governors of the trust were appointed by the University of Aberdeen, by two of the local authorities, and by something called the Society of Writers to the Signet. Now, Writers to the Signet are a kind of lawyer in Scotland. So half of the trust of the 10 governors are lawyers. We've got to the point where the university, the Society of Writers to the Signet, and one of the local authorities have all said we will no longer have anything to do with this in future. We'll neither appoint governors nor aid the process by which people can make applications. The governors, we don't know who the governors are because it's all done. They're all appointed secretly. And data protection doesn't allow us to discover this. But we do know that they're no longer being appointed by these bodies. But we think that the trust has found a way round this in the trustee to go on appointing governors. What's needed is Scottish government and Scottish politicians to express an opinion on this, and it's only action in Parliament that can make the change that could allow the repatriation of these funds. The value at the moment is about a bit under £2 million, and that could make a significant, if that went to Kingston, which seems to be the appropriate place for it to go, and there was a mechanism found for the distribution of that money, that could make a significant difference to education in Kingston. So we're still carrying on in that campaign. There is a new First Minister in Scotland and new cabinet ministers. So we're hoping with that change, it might make some difference. So we're just beginning to try and ramp up the campaign. It's been difficult for us to get press coverage about it. The press coverage I think it deserves, because it's the amounts of money involved, are significant. It's a big bit of the legacies of the slave trade, but we haven't managed to get much national coverage, either national in Scotland or UK national. The Sunday Times did a bit about it, and that did seem to make a difference, but we could do with more. Liz, I've talked for quite a long time. I mean, there's other stuff I could say to update on my current research. I don't know if you want me to pause or.
Maybe over the next few weeks we can catch up and chat about that, and then we can look at something for the next season to catch up with your latest research. Perhaps that would be really good. Okay, well, thank you ever so much for that. And just to do a quick update from the point of view of the work that we're trying to do with the Douglas Pennant Family Foundation. We meet regularly every week with the North Wales Jamaica Society, meet every week with people in Pennants, Jamaica, and they're deciding what they would like funds for, and then we're looking to apply to them. So that's an ongoing process, but these things take time, and I think you're doing the right thing, David, just hanging on in there and just being good. So we have joining us Jeff Palmer. Professor Sir Jeff Palmer, I am absolutely delighted to see you. How are you?
But can you hear me?
I can hear you well, yes.
Oh, good, because I've been trying to get in with difficulty.
Sorry about that.
But anyway, I'm relatively well. I'm still undergoing my treatment. But other than that, I try to do as much as I can. I was in Glasgow University this morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I was at Glasgow.
It's not very clear. Not very clear, but it's not bad.
But you can hear me.
A little muffy. Yeah, the sound is coming through, but just a little muffy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what it is.
That's fine now. That's fine. Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
I don't want to touch anything.
So Jeff, you've been so actively involved in the years since Black Lives Matter, particularly looking at the issues around the Henry Dundas statue and how that should be, how the information should be shared with the public, and working on no end of other campaign threads as well. Is there anything particular you want to update us with now?
Yes. As I said, I was at Glasgow University this morning, and they have what they call an Outlander conference, which is an international conference, and you know, people from America, Canada, Germany were all there this morning in the university. And one of the things they said, because they've never met me, in a sense that this is their first trip to the UK, and it's very sad, you have a Black person was saying that in parts of America, the Black families or Black people don't want to hear this history because it's, and I said to her, maybe it's what they've been told. And you see, she hadn't thought of that somehow it's like, for example, this morning, somebody said to me that in Florida now, they want to teach that slavery benefited Black people. It taught them skills. And so therefore there is a what I call a backlash. But other people actually said that what we're doing here is so significant because, especially on Twitter, people are following and are learning things they never knew.
Yeah.
So therefore, for example, I put up that I was discussing, the title of my talk was Hands That Took, and that is from Robert Burns. In one of his poems, he states, you know, hands that took but never gave. And that was the essence of my talk, hands that took but never gave. And it's a poem he wrote called Ode Sacred to the Memory of Mrs. Oswald of Auchencrew. And in this poem, he describes that she was on an annuity of 10,000 glittering pounds a year. That's 10 million. Her husband was in Jamaica with Alexander Grant in the 1740s. And they bought Barnes Island outside Sierra Leone and used it as a slave supermarket. And they were both based in Jamaica, Grant and Oswald. And Oswald actually also had dealings in Florida, and he was used by the British government to negotiate the peace after the 1782 War for Jamaica, which the Navy fought, you know, the All Saints battle in 1782, when the French decided they were going to take Jamaica. In 1782, that's a year before the American Revolution ended, with 1783. In 1782, the French decided they were going to take Jamaica because of the wealth that was coming from Jamaica. And that's why we have Rodney Street all over England and all over Scotland. And that's why we have so many Jamaica streets. We've counted them in Scotland. There are 7 at least Jamaica streets. 7. The point is that what I tried to tell them this morning is this history isn't known or understood. I've been to Oswald's house, Richard Oswald. It's in Auchencrew, and it's an enormous mansion. And the point is, Burns got annoyed with them and he wrote this poem, Ode Sacred to the Memory of Mrs. Oswald of Auchencrew. And thus were those 2 lines, powerful lines. That's a great poem, because in one line, this was a slavery where hands took and never gave. And to me, what the audience was saying, and it's now, you can see the response on the Twitter, my Twitter, where people are saying, and these are academics, that the fact is that unless you start speaking the truth, like what we did with Dundas and got his plaque changed. A German person was asking me this morning at Glasgow University. She said, well, if we take the old plaques down, should we leave them as well with the new plaque? And I said, yes, why not? because it will show you what people used to think. And therefore, what I found is that people didn't want plaques. They'd rather the statues come down because they don't want the public to be educated about the truth. So this is very powerful in terms of what we're doing here. Is noticed in America, a young lady came up and she said, you don't know what you're doing because the stuff you put up, we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know. And you have Scotland's greatest academic, Sir Tom Devine, when I challenged him on David Hume and said, David Hume said that Negroes are inferior to whites. The lady this morning said she's never heard that, or she didn't know where to come. I said, David Hume said it. And Sir Tom Devine and the rest of them jumped on me to say, and you know what they said? That was just a footnote. They didn't say he didn't say it. They said, when you consider the volume of work he did, this was just a footnote. And I said that footnote has killed millions of Black people. And Immanuel Kant picked up that footnote and tacked it onto race. That's where it came from, Kant and Hume. All what we're talking about, that prejudice, everybody in the world knows that prejudice. It came from two academics. It came from David Hume and Immanuel Kant. And therefore, it is up to the academic institution to put it right. But none of them will. You know, Edinburgh University took David Hume's name off their tower. And they were attacked by a whole load of academics saying David Hume is the father of the white world intelligentsia, of enlightenment. So what we're doing, we've got to start with what is academic and what is there. And unless we put that right, the prejudices will continue. And that was what I was telling them this morning. That's where I said, look, white people, some white people have never heard of that phrase. He said it in 1753. And when he was told that a Jamaican slave was quite intelligent and could do things, you know what David Hume said? He was a parrot. A parrot. So why we are at a great turning point, the truth about that academic power used to drive the prejudice. It's not the guy on the street calling you the N-word. It is the white institution. They know that phrase. It was used to justify the enslavement of Black people. So I don't want to hold you up too long, but that's what we've got to start addressing. That's our history. And people will say to me, never heard of it.
Well, it's just each time you're sharing stories, like June Elizabeth, when she says she shares her stories several times a day, and Teo, I'm sure you're the same, Garrick's the same. These are such important stories, but your analysis and comparison of the situation in Scotland and these academics that misled so badly and caused so much angst is just amazing. Thank you ever so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
See you later on when you come back.
I'd look forward to seeing you at some stage if I could manage it. I'd love to get up to Scotland while I'm here, but I've been here 2 months now. I've got 2 months to go. Garrick wanted to make a point, I think. Garrick?
Yes, couple of points, Liz. Firstly, what David Alston was telling us particularly in relation to Scotland. And I know Sir Jeff is on the same line in Scotland. I'm just wondering, because what David mentioned, the fact that the media, newspaper and other things don't want to cover any of these stories. And I'm just wondering how, what can we do to assist that? How can we get, working together, information out? What medium, can we use to get these things out? And Sir Jeff will know what you've just said in relation to false information. We could say a lie, proper lie, just a lie. There is a book called The Untold Stories, and things that is untold, that we never understood because it was never told, is now being told. And what Sir Jeff has just said, this is a story just being told. And I think what we have to do is to make those corrections. What's not been told, so the untold stories is now being told, which is the truth. And the untold, sometimes it's untold because they don't want you to know about it. Another time it may be a lie. But the fact is, getting accurate information out. Academics don't like to be corrected. I know this because I work in an academic institution. They don't like to be corrected. And whatever they think is right and what they say, they always, even if they discover it's not correct, they don't want to correct it. Yeah. And so, Jeff, you will know this. Yeah. If you're dealing with academic, because they don't want the embarrassment of having to say, oh, I made a mistake. I didn't research enough. I didn't do enough work around this. That will expose them. So they rather believe the lie and continue to perpetrate the lie. The fact that you are now challenging the lie, and this is what we ought to be doing, continue to challenge the lie. And this whole thing about institution, we're now understanding the greater meaning about systemic and a greater meaning about institution. Macpherson gave us that. Institution racism. Now institution is coming out in every aspect. Institution about the government system, all the different public services, different institution, they're now using this terminology, but they still will not accept the term institutional racist. They don't want to accept that terminology, but they're quite happy to accept institution in other areas.
Yeah, you're quite right. But you see, what we've got to do, if they won't do it, we've got to find the truth and speak it. It's up to us. And what they're doing is saying, if they don't do it and they can't look up evidence and they can't provide the support for this evidence, then we just continue to say what we're saying. And therefore, it is up to us and good people, no matter what color they are, from institutions to do that work and publish it. It's a lovely little story. I was in Glasgow this morning and I got, I couldn't find the university, and I stopped and asked two white people. And one of the white people said to me, "Are you the guy who found your way from Jamaica to London in 1955? Well, the university is just around the corner. I'm sure you'll find it." The point is that he had seen a video, the one we've just done with the portraits of the Windrush people. And he was telling me that he saw it. We've got to get that to the public. That's the message there. The public is waiting for it. We cannot just keep talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
We've got to get it out there.
I think maybe that's the theme for what we ought to be looking at. I think during Black History Conversations, and Sir Jeff Palmer, I just thank you so much that you supported us and gave us confidence to keep going through our sessions. I think, Garrett, you've said so often how we're going to get the stories out more. Garrett, there's a lot that the Guardian's been doing with the cotton diaries. So that is one area where the message is going out. But then, in a way, preaching to the converted, if people are reading it, they're interested in it, in Black history. So, yes, thank you so much again, Jeff. That's...
Yeah. Just as well, I've got to go now because I can see that my doctor has been trying to ring me.
Okay, off you go then, Jeff. Well, thank you very much for even the little chups. It's very.
I just felt I had to come in and do that. It's not much, but
okay.
It's better than nothing.
Off you go and follow up.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
nice to see you.
Take care.
Yeah, bye. Bye.
Bye.
During the Elizabeth. And then Taya. Taya,
I just wanted to say, I believe it would be very good to invite Dr. Marseille Day back to give an overview. You know, she did that presentation on why like the ethnic people do not go to holiday in Britain.
Oh yes, I think we ought to follow that one up, definitely.
Well, what happened, that was like a rehearsal, because she did a presentation at the conference last week. You know, when I said I've got that lady from Bangor that came and done a presentation that I'll give you the information tomorrow when you come. Well, she did a presentation on there, and I was observing the people's reaction. Now, you got to know that Northampton, I believe 53% of the students are ethnic. They're of colour at the university. A lot of African students. So a few African students came in, and workers, you know, lecturers, to hear her presentation. And what they're going to do, all the presentations, they're going to make a book, and they're going to get it released. But she added a bit more than what she did when she came on Black History. Obviously, for the conference there. And at the end, when, you know, I said to her, it was absolutely fantastic. But what happens is, like, when you talk the truth, some people might find it an offense, but some people don't want to accept it, and some people are shocked at it. I was watching the body language. I was watching the body language because, as you know, I'm a student, MA student at Northampton University. And the thing is...
You're also a policewoman.
As a researcher, she just gave them the facts. And the facts, without going around or pussyfooting, going around the bush, the facts showed, just like what was said earlier by a few people, that the racism is so indented into the fabric of British society that even the holiday thing shows the stats of racism. And I think if she came back and gave a full presentation, we would have some questions for her as well. And then today, I had a phone call when I was going to drop off a basket that I found from 1955 that was brought over by my mum, you know, the Jamaican baskets. So I dropped it off at the museum in case they want to use it tomorrow in the Windrush event. And the director said to me, he said, you know something, June Elizabeth, I put my head in yesterday at the exhibition, and it was mainly white people, English people there, and they said it was great. What a great thing, what a great legacy. And most of them said they never knew that Black people endured and suffered so much. And she said, they said also, the way it was presented, you can tell the people are talking the truth. They're not doom and gloom in it, but it made them aware. They had no idea of what the people that were invited here and the people that came over here had to suffer. So it is good to get it out any way you can.
So important, and it's important that research is done by community groups as well as academics, that Black groups are doing research as well as white and mixed groups. It's really important that we really look at our British history. Tayo, you were going to come in as a final point, I think.
Well, I was going to react to David Alston when he was speaking, and then I was going to react to Sir Jeff when he was speaking.
I apologise. Can you? Sometimes I don't just catch who I should be bringing in next. Tayo, come on, make your comments then. So David Alston.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear that stuff. It just so happens that I'm going to be performing in Aberdeenshire, and the organization that's taking me there is called Northeast Arts Touring. So I would love to be in touch with him.
Okay, I'll put you in touch with him, Tayo.
Thank you. And really, the other thing that I was going to say to him was, I've been trying to get to take my play, Just an Ordinary Lawyer, to the Caribbean. And there is interest from UWE, University of the West Indies, but of course they say they have no money. So I've tried to make contact with the British Council there, and if one can find out more about that fund that David told us about, even though it's very secretive and nobody knows how it's closed down, but at least that is another potential source of funding to take these stories to the Caribbean, and teach our people true history. And that relates to what Sir Jeff was talking about just now. The hands that took, which he says was used by Hume and Kant. It just so happens that literally 2 days ago, I had an email from an ex-classmate of mine, ex-classmate from Nigeria, who was talking about Paul Robeson, and he says that with your work, and your interest, maybe you should write about Kant because you're living the kind of life he lived. And by further coincidence, in my new play, Coleridge Taylor of Freetowns, George Coleridge Taylor, who was a nephew of Samuel, the composer, learned and taught philosophy at Furubay College in Freetown. And I have in the script up in front of me, a young woman is a student, she says her name is Blessing, and he says blessing. Blessing, I repeated, trying to remember, and she says, last term in your class on logic, I was the one asking you about why you were teaching us Kant and Hegel instead of African philosophy, sir. So the coincidences are numerous, and I was hoping to ask Sir Jeff more about Kant and how he used that idea of inferiority of Black people. in his work.
Could you just put your email address in the chat? I know Simon's got it, but it's quicker if you do this. Put you directly in touch with both David and Sir Jeff.
Okay.
And I apologise you didn't have a chance to address that with them directly.
That's all right.
Copy it down.
Okay.
At IO friends.com. Right, thank you very much indeed for that. Well, I think it's been such an interesting session again. I just have to thank Gwyneth here for hosting me. I've got custard creams and a cup of tea. This is better than usual.
Don't usually get that.
Don't usually get that, but anyway, thank you very much indeed, Gwyneth. We'll keep you posted because this project is now being taken on about the students at the African Institute by Conwy Archives, and it's very interesting that different organisations are taking things on now. I know we've got to do a whole lot more, Garrick. But what I was going to say next week, Garrick, I hope to come up to Liverpool and perhaps even see if Richard Benjamin's got time either next week or a week in August. I don't know, he might be away. But I'm just wondering if you might be able to join me and Leslie from the from the North Wales Jamaica Society, because we want to look at how we can explore the hinterland of North Wales with regard to supplying the Liverpool trade. So that's one thing we want to do. And then the other thing that I'm doing over the next few weeks, so that you all know and look forward to this in the next term, what have I found out about my family's history in Lancaster? So yes, there's I had family who were involved in the salts business, big time in the salt business in Cheshire, but also suspiciously living in a grand mansion in Lancaster, just outside Scale Hall, just by the docks. So there must be a good reason why we had all that silver in the cupboard. So we can have a look at that.
It would be nice, Liz.
All right. So
just before you go, Liz, over the next couple of weeks, it would be great for you to actually come to Liverpool for a full day, spend the entire day. I can take you into the archives in Central Library. It's quite a bit of material about the Pennants family. We can go up to where Richard is doing his research at the university, as well as the International Slavery Museum. And incidentally, tomorrow in Liverpool, we have a Windrush Festival all day tomorrow, from 10 till 5. Melissa Williams from York University is leading on that in conjunction with the WOW Festival and the museum. I've been asked to join a panel to talk about Windrush, and there will be other local people. Levi Tafari will be doing some poetry on the program. It's a full program. So yes, it's a pity that you're going to be entertained by June Elizabeth tomorrow. Otherwise, I would have nicked you and says, come to Liverpool tomorrow. But you already have your days mapped out for you tomorrow, so I can't interfere with that. So we'll wait for a couple of weeks.
All right then. Well, thank you very much, Garrick, and certainly see you next week and see June Elizabeth tomorrow. Tayo, I'm not sure when I'll meet up with you, but I'm sure we will sometime. Would be good. Okay, well, we're going to wrap this up now. This is the last session that we're going to do formally for season season 9 of Black History Conversations. But just to say for any of you, I'm quite happy to carry on meeting up on a weekly basis, but let's talk about that again. Okay.
When are you in Liverpool, Liz?
Sorry?
When are you going to be in Liverpool, Liz?
That might be worth trying to get some person-to-person meetings as well going, Garrick.
Yeah, when are you going to be in Liverpool, Liz? I thought you said you were coming to Liverpool.
Sure, yes, I'm there next week sometime.
Yeah. So Tayo, we can connect with Liz, you know, I'm sure.
Okay.
Because, you know, Tayo is local, I'm local, so we'll connect with you.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
just do a full day, Liz, it'll be fine. Yeah.
And a colleague called Leslie wants to come as well. She's our treasurer. So
That's great. It's fine. Yeah.
Nature Society.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks very much. See you tomorrow,
Excellent.
June Elizabeth.
Okay. Take care.
Garrick and
Bye.
Taylor.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Take care. I'll give you a ring a bit later, Liz, just
Okay.
to
Good.
make sure you know, I know what time you're leaving out. I know you said you can get here for midday. I want to check a couple of other things as well. All right then. Take care
Right.
now. Yeah, bye.
Thank
One
you.
love. Thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you, Gwyneth. Thank you.
Very interesting.
Really saying how interesting it's been. It's been lovely.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Yes, it's lovely. Yeah.
All right. Bye all then.
Bye.